Oh, we're rolling.
Or banter.
Bruce Banter.
God damn.
What the fuck is
Bro,
the
did you get
matter
that
with
7?
you, man?
Like, that 7, dog?
Yeah, he got that new
that's a
phone.
7.
He got that new phone.
Oh,
Yeah, only got one hole. It's interesting.
How's that working out?
There's a converter. Works out pretty well. Only downside is the pair of headphones I like to use. It has an L crook to it instead of the straight thing with the jack thing. So yeah, it's nice, but I feel like I'm gonna break it every time.
No way to talk about your girlfriend.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the newest comic duo, Davis, a dabbler in many disciplines with a voice that can soothe and persuade. Mike, a fanatical specialist with a mouth like a bullhorn, fueled by strong opinions and a compulsion to share them. With microphones and comics in hand, they are Jacks of Trades.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jacks of Trades. I'm Mike.
And I'm Davis.
On Jacks of Trades, we read, discuss, and review trade paperbacks and graphic novels from major and indie comic publishers. We're not experts by any means. We just love hanging out and talking comics. How you doing, Davis?
You know what? I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Doing pretty well. The
Yeah.
girlfriend and I made things Facebook official last night.
I know now everybody gets to stalk her.
I know, it's great.
Which is interesting. Katie made a wonderful comment after looking at some of her posts. Like, it's just Davis with longer hair. Like, it's just a lot of similar interests.
Okay.
A lot of similar
good.
interests.
Good. It's similar interests. Not like they look exactly the same, because that would be very
really weird.
narcissistic
Really weird.
of me. I'm pretty pretentious, but not narcissistic.
But instead of flexing in the mirror while having sex, a la Patrick Bateman, you can just look at her and flex while having sex.
The number of Patrick Bateman references you've been making lately have me really concerned.
It's
I
getting
am
really
Patrick
scary. Yeah, but you look more like Jared Leto in the movie.
Yeah, because he's prettier.
He is pretty.
Leto's a pretty man.
He loves young girls.
Anyway, we are here today with Greg from In-Depth Media.
Hi.
As always. And unfortunately, we've decided to make him our guest as well.
Yay.
Hi,
It
Greg.
reeks of desperation.
Yeah, a little. Or we want the people to get to know our lovely behind-the-scenes yelling from the background.
I thought it was so we didn't have to pay him.
I mean, well, we're not going to pay him anyway.
Oh, okay.
I don't pay you,
Yeah, but I volunteer for this.
and you don't pay me either.
Yeah. Donnie pays us.
Donnie always pays.
Mm-hmm.
We have an ongoing bet where every time Davis says something offensive, Donnie owes me $1.
Yep.
He hasn't paid up yet, but his tab is getting huge.
Huge.
So we are here today with Greg Tilton of
Hello.
In-Depth Media. He is a filmmaker. He is a cinematographer. He is all kinds of abbreviations I don't understand relating
brewer.
to film and picture taken and wedding capturing for your viewing I don't know. Greg, why don't you tell the people what you do? Tell them what you do in New Orleans work-wise, just so they get an idea of who you are. And as per usual, give them your experience with comics and maybe your favorite comic character and why.
Sure. I run a film production company here in town for the third time, In-Depth Media. Tell your friends.
Shameless plugs.
So my business partner and I, Mickey, we do all kinds of video work and editing work, short films, documentaries, music videos, all kinds of fun stuff. I love cameras. I love being behind the camera. Give me a big expensive piece of glass and a red button to push and I'm going to have an awesome day. So love doing that. I've gotten the podcast bug really bad, really into it now. So Ryan and Josh, we do Rumor Flies, another really fun podcast.
Check it out. I listen to it every week. It is a wonderful podcast, a lot of good banter, but also a lot of cool information. Basically, everything you thought you knew but never wanted to look up is probably wrong. And they do all the work for you, so you don't have to do any research at all. It's great because I'm lazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like
absolutely.
Mythbusters and Snopes smashed together and a little bit more whiskey.
Yeah.
But,
A little more whiskey.
And puns.
Yeah. So I have a similar
And puns.
relationship as I do with Davis and Mike here, where I produce both shows somewhat. I do a lot of the back end, website, social media stuff. Mike and Davis have been taking on the reins more. Desi's obviously he's been doing some of the editing now.
He's in the room this
actually in
time,
the room
guys.
This time.
Hey, everybody.
And I guess to answer your question, so I really am very new to the comic world. Mike knew the best way to pull me into it was to give me a bunch of stuff that's basically Soviet propaganda.
Well, first of all, to pull you in, I was like, hey, I want to do a podcast. And you were like, I would love to help work on another podcast. Because we could not do any of this technical work at all.
No, it would be, we would have a rock band microphone attached to a MacBook running GarageBand. That'd be about it.
That is a viable option.
We just Bill Burr style, just an iPhone balanced on a Coke can.
There you go. Yeah, so I've been recently starting to read some. I'm still not nearly as voracious of a reader as the two of you, but I've been slowly making my way through. I'm fully caught up on Red 1. I've really enjoyed that. It's such a ridiculous series. Basically, Boogie Nights meets some sort of funny communist romp. It's such a ridiculous series. I really can't describe it.
Yeah, me and Greg also started reading Image's Mayday. It's a 5-part
Mayday is really
miniseries.
Interesting, really stylized.
Like Greg said, anything Soviet-based, he will read. He is just unhealthily interested in Soviet Russia. I'm not sure what he's trying to say. I think he's...
I have a history
I think
degree.
he's part of a sleeper cell.
There you go. I guess one of my favorite heroes, or just favorite characters. I've enjoyed this I've been reading. I'm enjoying the characters I've been reading a lot. Deadpool's pretty funny. But I have to admit, one thing I love about the Marvel movies right now is Iron Man. Not because of Robert Downey Jr., not because he's rich, not because he has no powers, quote unquote, that narrative. It's just that such amazing testosterone-fueled fan service. Where he puts on the Hulkbuster is the coolest moment. The boot drops, the rubble flies up, and as he's like standing there with half the Iron Man suit sitting out, its encase is coming down, and the arms are rocketing down to finish the suit, and the huge mask slams down. That moment of just the Hulkbuster assembling was so lovingly crafted by such a bro. I just loved the Hulkbuster scene, and that alone cemented Iron Man as one of my favorite characters to watch.
So that makes you pro-capitalism.
I mean, I wouldn't say pro, but it's convenient.
Okay. I'm just saying there's a lot.
Amateur capitalism. So today, guys,
let's dive in.
Let's get into the book. We are doing Deadpool, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly today, published by Marvel. Came out in 2013. It was part of Deadpool's ongoing. It was volume 3, issues 13 through 19. Came out July 2013 to November 2016. For the writers, it was Brian Posehn, who is a stand-up comedian
and voice actor.
Yeah,
love that guy.
He wrote
he's done.
He wrote Deadpool volume 3, issues 1 to 22. He also wrote it with Gerry Duggan, who is a very famous modern Deadpool artist. He's worked on Deadpool from 2013 until now, until the issue that just came out, I'm pretty sure. Our artists, Declan Shalvey, I believe, it's the penciler. He's most known for 28 Days Later and Hero Killers. And Jordi Belair was the colorist. He's known for Pretty Deadly and The Massive. Now, some noteworthy things about this book. It came out as the first iteration of Marvel Now. As some of you know, we are currently in the second iteration of Marvel Now, which is Marvel has a good or bad habit, depending on your perspective, of rebooting their lines every year. So they kind of just either cut off what they're doing and start with a new number 1, or they have another one and they just slap a big sticker on the front that says Marvel Now. I'm enjoying it because it's a great way to say, hey, you want to read a whole bunch of new stuff and give us a ton of money? Please do, because I'm giving them a lot of money. But I'm having a lot of fun reading stories that I hadn't previously got into. So, Davis, did you pick up any yet?
Yeah, I actually right now that is part of the new Marvel Now.
Yes,
it's a brand new comic going off with a bunch of heroes on. If you listen to our supplementary drinking issues, you'll be able to hear our input on that one. But actually, the new Uncanny Inhumans that I'm reading right now is part of the new Marvel Now.
An existing line that has a nice little jumping off point.
Exactly. It's like number 16.
But it's also number 1.
It's a building issue anyway.
So this is the part of the original Marvel Now reboot. The title of the story is a reference to a 1966 film starring Clint Eastwood, which, if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's a wonderful spaghetti western. The title also refers to the 3 most famous Weapon Plus alums: Captain America, the good; Wolverine, the bad; and Deadpool, the ugly.
He's pretty ugly.
They do a great job of drawing just how horrific his skin is.
I don't want to know about the parts of his skin, and like I see the face and the eyes, and I'm done like that. I don't want to see.
They show the torso, the arms, the legs.
And he always has that really toothy grin,
and
smile.
His teeth are just his teeth are gross too.
He's so hideous.
Very British.
So anyway, you guys ready to dive into the story a little bit and kind of break it down?
Knowing Deadpool, this is a little shallow, so I don't want to dive head first. I'd rather have like a nice cannonball.
Oh my God.
It's not a pun, but it's still terrible.
It's an analogy, sir. Yeah. It's an analogy. I'm trying to use an analogy for this.
I'm just going to say it's not up to your normal standards. But just like any good artist, Davis has to warm up.
Yes.
Now, I do know that some of you might be a little wary about Deadpool, being as he's very oversaturated. He has 3 or 4 comics currently out. He's in Spider-Man Deadpool. He's in his own standalone. He's in Deadpool Back in Black. He was just in Deadpool vs. Gambit, or Gambit vs. I forget which order it was.
I thought it was Gambit and Deadpool.
It was Versus.
It was Versus, okay.
Because the subtitle was V stands for Versus. It was in Deadpool Too Soon recently, which was an Infinite comic. The online
Mercs
versions.
for the Money.
Yeah, he's in the Mercs for the Money. So yeah, he has a bunch of comics out right now. Everybody's kind of buying into him because of the movie. But I promise you that this is an interesting story that should at least entertain you for the next hour.
Yes.
So this story starts with issue number 13 of Volume 3 called Talkin' Jive and Takin' Lives.
Oh, man.
Yeah, what they did with this one is they finished a current arc, and they basically pulled out this archived issue from the 70s that was too controversial at the time to publish, so we're going to publish it now. And it's this modern interpretation of these 70s kind of comics of the Heroes for Hire, which is Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and Deadpool kind of forcibly inserting himself in their story.
Yeah, the proper term, I believe, is called blaxploitation.
And that's very specifically refers to the cinematic
but what about
it is
Iron Fist? Because when you're exploiting the Asian culture in a kung fu film, it's what
I have no idea what the term is.
I don't know,
but it's very much the racially insensitive
also,
narratives and monetization of cheap action films in the 70s.
Iron Fist is a white man, so it's either not as much or more offensive.
It's culture exploitation.
Yeah, at the time it was just.
I believe the academic term is problematic.
Yeah. But anyway, the good part about this is it's a big satire on those kind of stories.
Definitely.
Let's just talk about how Deadpool looks in this issue. Davis, do you want to... You get the book in front of you. Describe his costume.
Oh, my God.
All right.
At this point.
Imagine if foot on up. Got yourself a nice pair of plaid, all-black bell-bottoms going in the bottom. Some nice, what looks like, I would say, ankle-high boots with a nice sharp point on them. So if you got to do a little bit of kicking, it gets in them. Big belt buckle going on the side with a nice tucked-in, I'm guessing because of the times, all polyester, red shirt with collars so big you can put a hamburger on them. A nice black vest over that with a big chain with kind of like a Deadpool symbol right in the middle of the whole thing. And to top it all off, there's an afro with a pick in it. Now, Deadpool doesn't have any hair, so this afro is sewn into the hood.
There is the pick. Now, well, the best part is, it's not a hole cut in the top of the mask to grow an afro out of. Somehow, there's just an afro growing out of his mask.
He probably sewed it on there, or maybe using this tacky glue. Not too sure.
Can we please address this line he's saying?
Which one?
Kathy.
Oh, dude, Kathy's a great comic. He's hoping she finds a man.
Deadpool's reading the newspaper, and the first thing he addresses is a Kathy comic.
Man, that is the funniest thing I've ever read. I love this new comic strip. Kathy. I wish her luck finding a good man these days. She should hook up with that Son of Sam guy. Okay.
The best part about these Deadpool tales is there's a lot of one-liners we're going to touch on, but I promise you there's so many more in the book that we're not even going to get near.
Can someone TLDR Son of Sam?
Serial killer? His dog was telling him that the Lord wanted him to kill people, I'm pretty sure. If I remember correctly. Thanks. Want to hook up your friends with a serial killer.
Well, not your good friends.
No, just maybe frenemies.
Frenemies.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, I don't know a ton about comics, as I said before, but I'm just from a knee-jerk reaction looking at the colors. Mm-hmm. It's very much that, neo-noir films that you had in the, 60s and 70s, these kind of oranges, yellows, popping, saturated colors.
The thing is kind of muted.
Yeah.
Because at the time, they couldn't really print those colors as you can do it nowadays.
Well, it's strong mid-tones is what, it kind of looks like film. So it was
just, they wanted it bright and vibrant, but they didn't quite have the ink and the technology to do it
no white either, though. If you look at it, it's always yellow background.
There's not a lot of white in there. Deadpool is reading a newspaper and he sees an ad for the Heroes for Hire.
Right, because they're obviously hiring heroes.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I'm a hero. I should totally go to this job interview, which it's not. It's not even remotely a job interview. Mm-hmm. But Deadpool is sometimes dumb, sometimes just oblivious. So he decides he's
sometimes a little bit of both.
So he hooks up with Power Man and Iron Fist kind of against their will. Now, just so everybody knows, the first 2 issues are a lot of setup for the main story, so we're going to kind of breeze through a lot of it. A, because it's going to be a really long episode if we don't, but B, they're really fun, and I almost would rather you experience those episodes for yourself, because we are going to ruin a lot of plot points.
Yes.
You know, just with our analysis. So I don't want to spend too much time with these, just kind of set you up appropriately. But he goes and sees the Heroes for Hire, and they are going to help a Hispanic grocer.
Yes.
Who is getting shaken down by a local crime group.
The White Man.
Yeah. Describe the White Man. who would like to? Davis, Greg, who wants to describe what the White Man looks like?
I mean, guests, it is your...
I mean, for some reason, his skin is like pale white across the board, and he's in a white pimp suit, a big hat, and he has a big magical stick. Just they basically took all the racism that was subtle in blaxploitation films and 70s humor and made one character who's just on the nose with it. Like, nobody can stop the white man. He's always referring to himself as the white man.
He's oppressing the minorities.
About the white man.
Do you think it was a little ironic that his staff turns everyone to stone, so he just gets everyone stoned all day long?
God.
I did not take it in that direction.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, that out of all the powers that the white man could have, what is it? Oh, now you're going to be stoned. Ching.
Yeah, he's just...
Well, white people do love giant concrete statues in their yard.
Oh, that's true. My parents just got a new bird girl. They love it.
Okay, anyway. So, the White Man is shaking down a local Hispanic grocer, so the Heroes for Hire are going to help her. Power Man and Iron Fist are going to disguise themselves as employees at the grocery store. So that when he comes in to shake them down, they're going to step in. Only Deadpool decides he's going to help and basically botches the entire operation. He steps in as like an alternate pimp gang leader guy who's going to try and step in on the white man's territory.
Well, the ever creative name.
Yeah, the ever creative name, Dead Pimp. There is so much leopard print involved in his costume.
You think it's gonna be.
Wonderful.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And he botches the entire operation. He gets captured along with the attractive daughter of the grocer, Carmelita, and they both get locked up together.
What does Carmelita mean in Spanish? Does it mean little caramel?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
That they at one point say, what is like his power? And I think Deadpool under his breath goes, the white man's superpower is to be able to infect any blanket with smallpox. And I just burst out laughing. That is so on the nose and so inappropriate that I couldn't contain myself. It was so funny.
Deadpool just has these wonderful, I don't even want to say off color because they're so far away from color. They're not even remotely okay. He just makes these terribly inappropriate jokes.
And to emphasize, of course, Power Man does his Power Man's Unchained, baby, as his line. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. That's that's like straight out of Shaft.
It's a little
like
okay.
It's
so
Sweet Christmas.
Point being,
anyway,
you'll get my point.
Anyway, Deadpool ends up getting locked up with Carmelita. Now, I want to talk about how the artist drew this love scene.
Okay. It's like, oh no, you threw me in this jail cell, which is really a rec room.
With a very buxom,
young
ethnic woman.
Now, Daisy Duke shorts. We're talking about how like the pockets hung out. Like these things, over half the length of it is pockets.
Yeah, they're aggressively short shorts.
Like, as Deadpool is talking, it's like, oh, we need to get out of here. She's just taking clothes off. Just screw it. Let's just get naked right now. And he wants to play Battleship, or as they say, Battle Boat, as they call it in there. Then it's just a series of 18 little short rectangular panels. Oh, look, it's a battleship. And then a phone. Then a rose. Then a beaver. And then her covering over her boobie while she puts a rose in Deadpool's face. And then someone almost hitting a ball into a 9-hole for golf. And then a gun. And then her looking, swaying in the background. And then a peg almost going into a hole. And then lips. And then a scene from the Kama Sutra. And then a cat of nine tails. And then a train almost going into a tunnel. And then there is a lava lamp. And then there's a USA very phallic looking rocket. And all Deadpool wants to say the entire time is, I'm going to sink your... And then she says, shut up, and then a rumbling, and then there's a volcano eruption, and then Luke Cage pops in through the door saying, Sweet Christmas!
I think my favorite part is just the delicate innuendo and then just a beaver.
Yeah.
It's a picture of the animal, a beaver. It is just a hilarious representation of Eating a dead horse.
Are you sure she wasn't beating a dead pool?
Oh my god.
Foreplay. That's a thing. So one thing I really loved about this throwback 70s looking issue at this point in time is the fact that it is just rife with nothing but movie references and everything else from things from the 70s. Like earlier they find people like, we're just going to play baseball and we're dressed like Kiss. It's like, oh, well, that sucks. It's like the baseball gang in The Warriors. And then after that, someone's saying, it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? George Lucas? Oh, no. He read that one space opera? Everyone hates THX 1398 or whatever it's called.
And they're all super excited. The guy's like, just give Coppola a chance. Everyone knows Godfather 2 is better than 1, so 3 is going to be the best yet. Yeah, and I just sat there, I went, Godfather 2 and 3 with Coppola reference. Nice joke, if on the nose.
There's a lot of these.
Yeah, they're pretty funny. It's like, your part of you wants to roll your eyes at them, but you're like, oh, but they're committing to the joke. This is pretty good.
Oh, yeah. So, as Davis said, Power Man and Iron Fist break in. A fight scene ensues. There is gratuitous violence and a little bit of witty banter. Mm-hmm. The white man ends up getting hit with his own staff, and it turns him to stone.
Luke Cage rips a man's arms off.
Yeah, it was very comical to this point, and then becomes incredibly graphic.
What is the Iron Fist reference? Is it just me, or is it a very sex-based reference to where he charges up a punch and he's basically like, once I get going, I have to go, or I can't stop.
It starts to hurt. It star's to hurt.
It starts to hurt if
Definitely sounds like blue balls.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So he just punches a wall and it explodes.
That's right.
For no reason.
A note about this panel. This Deadpool has an arrow in his head. Does anyone notice that? In the
Nope.
next scene, it's gone.
Is he making a Steve Martin joke?
Was there a crossbow anywhere?
Never. There was
previously?
never fired. It wasn't the one before. It's just there. And the next panel, it's gone.
I think that might be a Steve Martin reference. He always did all of his stand-up with the little
his
arrow
early
through the head.
stand-up, he had an arrow
and just,
in his-
excuse me.
Maybe they are just highlighting how ridiculous the violence was.
No, 100%. It's what David said.
It's the Steve Martin reference.
Yeah.
Does he say excuse
he
me?
does say that.
Yep.
He does
Okay,
say
well,
that.
so then
You're
you're
right.
right.
Sure.
It's the Steve
100%.
Davis
Yes.
is not even looking at the book right now.
Yep. No, it's all nothing but Steve Martin references.
Davis, my job is to say things I don't know with 100% confidence and hope you back down. That's not your job.
No, sir. No, it's my job to say things with 100% confidence and have you think that they're real.
So anyway, arrow in his head, Steve Martin reference.
Yeah. But white man turns to stone. He ends up being a statue in some white person's living room because white people love giant concrete statues.
Everything's all said and done. Day is saved. The white man is, fully stoned and not able to move. It's to the point in the end where Deadpool gets to greet the wonderful, wonderful woman that he engaged with very eruptive coitus with. And he takes his mask off. And comes off with it, obviously. And then we just look at this horrible looking face. Like Ryan Reynolds looked like a prom king in the movie compared to this mug. Just nasty.
And he's yelling, it's Miller time.
In every single issue of this tale, they draw his skin in gruesome detail. I've read a lot of Deadpool comics where they kind of tone it down a little bit. This one, they do not tone it at all. It's just in your face, as aggressive as they can possibly make it. And she runs screaming.
I do believe she starts vomiting at one point in time.
She does, yeah. I think she does throw up a little bit.
So,
the white man turns to stone. He's in someone's living room for decades. Someone knocks over the statue, and because this is how getting turned to stone works, just the outside of him was stone, so he breaks out of this stone cocoon, basically.
Unlike everyone else that he's touched with this thing.
Yeah. He breaks out of stone in the modern era, and he immediately goes looking for revenge on the Heroes for Hire, which brings us to issue number 14, The White Man Cometh.
Sometimes the past comes to haunt you, and it's dressed like a pimp.
and what's the movie called?
Pimpula.
No.
The White Man Cometh. There we go. Now we got the good stuff. So now as we get into issue number 2, it's back into modern looking coloring, modern looking panel layout.
Art style.
There's no actual white trenches in between the panels themselves like the one we were reading previously.
Yeah, no, everything's drawn in a modern style.
The white man's back and he is pissed.
Yes, he runs out in the middle of the street, starts causing all kinds of terror and problems, and he ends up getting filmed by the people on the street, just like in modern day. They just pull out their phones and videotape him.
And he makes that guy follow him around.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He freezes everyone with this one guy, and he goes, "You." Like, he has him come around, like, send it onto the World Wide Web, and has him follow him around.
Which, so basically, while he was in stone, he was just encapsulated, but he is sentient and awake, and he is hearing and seeing everything that's going on. He just can't move.
Yeah, yes.
Which,
and he didn't need food.
Yeah, when you're in stone, you don't need food. So if anyone's looking to preserve a loved one, encase them in concrete, and they'll be totally fine until you break them out later.
Magic concrete.
Where do you get magic concrete?
Quickcrete. That's pretty magical. Very creedy.
Very, yeah.
But so the white man goes on top of the Empire State Building and says, "This is going to be the worst day ever for New York." And someone quickly reminds them, "Whoa, dude, 9/11? Okay, this will be one of the worst things to ever happen in New York."
"Oh yes, I did hear about that. That was terrible." Like, I
love it. Yeah.
He's like, "You're totally right. Like, that was an awful day for America."
even this terrible villain is like, "Yeah, that was pretty bad. It was pretty bad." Yeah. So Luke ends up seeing the white man on the TV, and the news reporter even ends up saying, "Deadpool and his heroes for hire," which makes him lose his mind. He's not one of us. Like, he's so upset that Deadpool has managed to weasel his way into the heroes for hire.
That Power Man, Iron Fist, and their terrible leader, Deadpool.
Yeah, and Luke Cage is so upset, so he ends up calling Iron Fist, who's teaching a martial arts class in Harlem. And they're like, "We need to find Deadpool. We need to get to the Empire State Building." There's an exchange between Iron Fist and his students, which I love, where he goes, "How am I supposed to find Deadpool?" And one of his students goes, "He's got a Twitter." And he just stops and goes, "Well, don't follow him." Luke, Iron Fist, and Iron Fist students, for some reason, all go to the Empire State Building. They get left outside on the street level while everybody goes upstairs. Now, they're distracting the white man, and Deadpool is getting the hostages out while strategically grabbing a woman's butt on the way out in true inappropriate Deadpool fashion to get everyone out of the room before the white man can notice. In his anger, he basically creates a giant explosion in the room, turning Luke Cage and Iron Fist to stone and blasting Deadpool out of the room.
To where he lands on a taxi cab.
Now, this is the thing I was talking about earlier that I was very curious about. So, interesting moment here is that he has his gun. He goes, "I could really use control of my finger right now, Preston." And because he's stopping him, like, "Don't shoot him while he's holding that baby."
Yeah, well, any fan of Deadpool knows that he has a ton of voices in his head.
Right.
Now, and I have an archived issue for when Greg decides to be delinquent and doesn't want to show up to record 1 month, and we have to release these archived issues to keep you people satiated.
Satisfied.
There you go. And in that one, all of Deadpool's inner monologues just get destroyed by one powerful one.
During the explosion, if you look at the artwork, he fires his gun. If you notice that. So I was very curious once I understood what Preston was and all that and the battle for control they have. But I thought it was interesting that he does take the shot here.
Yeah.
Especially in like these issues where he's definitely like he's kind of a psychopath, but he's not he's not like just murdering people.
No, not terribly.
Do you think they'll ever have an episode an issue whenever Betty White dies and Betty White bemes one of the voices in his
I
head?
hope so. I really hope Betty White.
God.
That'd make life a little easier after that.
Or Martha Stewart just be like, "And that's a good thing."
That'd be terrible. So, Deadpool gets blasted out of the building, lands on a car, completely crippled. So while his healing factor kicks in, the martial arts students of Iron Fist decide they're going to strap him to a furniture dolly, and they're going to go after the white man who is loading the statues of Power Man and Iron Fist onto a boat to escape.
Where he doesn't notice any... Yeah, technically it is.
It is a yacht.
Onto the boat. I'm going to get my getaway right now.
You jive turkey.
Get out of here, you hand turkey.
Like your Thanksgiving preschool artwork that you gave to your parents.
It's like calling someone a crumb bum, too.
A crumb bum.
You crumb bum.
Just anything to not associate with other society, right? Like anything to differentiate yourself. Okay, so they sneak on board. There's a fight that ensues. The kids just start attacking the white man. Deadpool's just like, "Okay, well, go ahead. Your funeral. Have fun." And
they punch him in the nuts. Someone, they're small enough, they have the right, like, as far as if we're going with batting box here.
After Power Fist gave them a lecture about fighting fairly and justly.
As I was always taught, there is no such thing as a fair fight. If another human is trying to harm you,
Yes.
it is your job to do as much damage to them as you possibly can to protect yourself.
Pocket sand.
Pockets.
Sha-sha-sha.
Anyway, the kids attack him. They punch him, as Davis,
In the testicles.
in the testicles, turn him to stone, and push him overboard.
Yep.
We get a lovely flash forward to the future where Earth is completely devoid of human life, and he is the last human specimen captured by a bunch of space aliens who then bring him to a zoo, dress him up like a Fred Flintstone-esque caveman, and put him on display for other aliens.
Which, after all the 70s racial humor and the white man is such a fitting, insensitive,
Ending.
inappropriate end to such a racial monster. Like, just that, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Just the fact that all this racial commentary plugged into one awful corner.
Yeah, it's a lot of. It's a very fitting end.
The worst
Definitely
timeout
is
ever.
a fitting end for him. So the day is saved. Deadpool goes on his way, and here we kind of start getting our first concrete reference to Preston. Greg mentioned it earlier in the situation. For anyone who doesn't know,
I don't know.
I did the research.
Good.
Get this: Agent Preston is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. After Captain America's reputation was tarnished for killing a zombie Harry Truman, raised from the dead by a villain known as the Necromancer, she was tasked by S.H.I.E.L.D. to recruit a hero who wouldn't have the same reputation problems. She recruited Deadpool for the job after he stopped a zombie Franklin Delano Roosevelt from terrorizing New York. She was killed when zombie George Washington attacked the helicarrier, and the Necromancer put her consciousness in Deadpool's head. That is exactly what happened in the previous arc of Volume 3.
Oh, okay.
So Deadpool is talking on a phone, and Preston pops in. She is going to be the pink speech bubbles as opposed to Deadpool's usual yellow, and she pops in and warns Deadpool he's about to be attacked. So he grabs a needle full of raw adrenaline out of one of his many pouches and slams it into his chest.
Pulp Fiction style.
And just basically gets ready to go to town. His attackers start shooting him with tranquilizer darts.
His crazy eyes.
Yeah, that's not outright.
No one's scooping anything out
Yeah,
of me.
very, very, very crazy. So he gets hit by a bunch of tranq darts and ends up killing the two attackers, and then laments that he always forgets to leave one alive. To where this red-haired woman off to the side attempts to shoot him, and he goes ahead, shoots out her knees, and then chops off her fingers when she tries to take a cyanide pill. He asks her, how long has this been going on? And she basically says, this is the 7th time they've drugged Deadpool to harvest his organs for their buyer, a man named Butler. Which is kind of a really strong turn for the previous 2 issues.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of this like, oh, ha 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 ha, campy things happening in the past. Oh, look, Deadpool got laid.
Why,
So, yeah,
why
so
are
you've
we
gone
doing Will
from-
Smith? No, why are we doing Will? He has to answer for his crimes. Why are we doing Will Smith?
Fine. Hold on. Don't go there, cause he'll take your fingers. Deadpool likes to fart and let it linger.
It's not bad for on the spot.
All right, thank you.
Really not bad for on the
Thank
spot.
you.
So,
All right,
A strong B.
partial redemption.
yeah, so anyway, Deadpool finds out he's been getting drugged and his organs harvested for some unknown reason. He explains to him that it's this man named Butler. She's like, okay, well, we're done. And he's like, I can protect you. And she's like, no, you
No,
can't.
not at all.
Yeah, to which she immediately gets sniped, just shot in the head from a sniper off in the distance.
Mustache.
Yeah, Deadpool runs up to get him, but then a helicopter just kind of flies away before he can.
Doses.
And we see this cloaked figure that says, our free-range Deadpool experiment is over. Let's bring him home.
And then we begin the meat and potatoes. That is, the good, the bad, and the ugly part 1.
Exactly. If you're reading this in an ongoing format in 2013, this is where the arc technically starts.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 issues prior are very important to this story, which is why they were included in the trade paperback.
Yes. Now, if we're looking at this style-wise, it went from this very bright, bold, Not this, incredibly serious, not really incredibly lifelike looking, kind of cartoony little anime look. Now we go into this very just simplified, realistic, very just muted colors looking Deadpool.
There's a lot of hard lines and angles. It's not very rounded and kind of pleasing on the eye. It's very sharp, very jarring, and the colors are very dark. Even when the background is supposed to be white, it's still kind of this dirty off-white. So anyway, it opens with a man in a suit is talking to a scientist about a particular Weapon X candidate that washed out of the program. The suit can't possibly fathom why someone would wash out a cancer patient who is now cured of his cancer because of their program. And the scientist is basically like, okay, his body might have been special, but his mind was garbage.
It's just done.
Which is the quote from the book, which shows a naked Wade, Deadpool, being ejected out of the program physically, down a trash chute into a pile of decomposing bodies and bones.
Now, every single issue is they have these flashbacks to where you look at, Deadpool in the beginning of the Project or Weapon Plus program, whatever he was in. Then you look at Wolverine, the Weapon X program. You look at, Cap, as we talked about earlier, going over the Super Soldier program. And you look at this, the entire background is just this white and grays, stark white. Unlike look in the present where everything's kind of
but it's just to highlight the frigid temperatures, the snow, the harsh environment.
But opposing that, we have presented our pink, red, even this kind of just like vulnerable color.
Well, his
obviously
skin is
red.
very, very sore covered.
Exactly. Well, even then, in the further issues coming up there, this is red and white dichotomy there because you see it's this very vulnerable color, like pink, like brand new baby flesh.
I was gonna say it very much
That's
has
interesting
a birthing quality to it.
I didn't pick up on that when I first read it, but
I think
it's
Wolverine
a good
looks that
point.
way too. In it,
Yeah.
It's a good point. It's kind of this pinkish vulnerability hue, which I didn't quite pick up on, but I like that.
It's interesting. And now we're talking about this man who has had cancer cured. He's ugly as fuck. Sorry. Ugly as sin. Ugly as fucking sin.
He's really ugly. And they don't, like we said, they don't shy away from drawing him that way.
Not at all. But his mind is garbage, but he has been cured of cancer.
Yeah. I like that whole line, his mind was garbage. Every issue so far has referenced nobody kind of likes him.
Truth.
Iron Fist and Power Man don't really enjoy him. He's cured of his cancer. And the scientist in charge of the program is like, yeah, he's garbage. Like, everybody's just kind of writing him off. Which is going to come up much more in this story. So, in the head for his poor judgment call, I guess. And the man he's talking to, his suit, goes over to a tank in the abandoned Weapon X facility, which is housing his beloved, is how he refers to her as. And he basically says, get you healed. So that there's a woman in a tank who is inflicted by something that he is very concerned about. And now he's upset because Deadpool might have unlocked the key to that.
That frame of him on the glass saying "I love you" is so disturbing.
Yeah, he's just
I spent
laying.
a solid 30 seconds looking at that frame being like, this is so uncomfortable. It's not just the content, it's not just the coloring, just the way, like, even laying on it, his body almost looks disfigured on it. It's a very creepy panel.
It's really
and it looks like in the
uncomfortable.
next panel they basically are showing you it's the same facility that he was ejected from, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we get to the modern day. We see a much older version of the guy in the suit lamenting over this tank that is still housing this woman. Very Mr. Freeze in the Batman and Robin movie with the woman in the tank, like, I will heal you once I can figure out how,
Right.
kind of thing.
She's giving me the cold shoulder.
Yeah, we jump back to Deadpool, who is now going to seek help from his fellow Weapon Plus alums.
Yep.
And he starts with Wolverine.
Who is currently just chilling in luxury.
Deadpool breaks into Logan's hotel, dresses up as a bellhop, and goes into his room. Now, he tells Logan what's going on about him getting harvested and drugged and everything. And Wolverine basically is like, what do you expect from the kind of lifestyle you lead? Like, you're a mercenary, you kill indiscriminately or for money. Do you really expect people to look out for you? Do you expect some shady kind of stuff to happen to you? So he refuses to help him. And then my favorite part is, as Wade's stepping out, he says goodbye to Storm. You're like, why would you say goodbye to Storm? And then a lump of covers next to Logan basically says, bye, Wade.
Ooh, they getting it on.
Yeah. Storm and Wolverine have a history of doing the deed. So it's a fun little reference that almost wasn't necessary. It's just Deadpool kind of throwing salt.
Just being salty.
Yeah. So then he goes over to Captain America, who's fighting some sort of costumed group. AIM, Hydra, something like that.
AIM.
I know Hydra's green. I didn't know if AIM was yellow.
Yeah, no, AIM is yellow. They look like they're in hazmat suits the whole time.
Yeah, so he's fighting AIM, and they're working together as a team. Captain America just tells Deadpool, look, you kind of have put yourself on the outside of society. Your mind's not quite right. Maybe you should go talk to somebody. So both Wolverine and Captain America have kind of dismissed Deadpool, which again is a theme. The scientist dismisses him from the program. Wolverine dismisses him. The Heroes for Hire dismiss him. Everybody's just dismissing Deadpool.
Yeah, well, because it's Deadpool. It's like he's a rogue.
Yeah. It's kind of sad because Deadpool's kind of laid his own...
He's dug his own grave.
Yeah, he's kind of dug his own grave. So we see Deadpool at dinner. He's talking to his inner monologue, Preston, and he goes to put a tracking device in his leg.
Why, you're forgetting the key point about this whole thing.
So he pulls down his pants to show a pair of blue underwear with a number 2 that looks eerily similar to the Fantastic Four logo.
It's the Fantastic 2.
So is that Sue Storm's underwear? Is that what that's saying?
No,
because Sue Storm is number 2 in the Fantastic Four.
Whoa.
And he's wearing a pair of underwear in the same style as the Fantastic Four, but it says 2.
Right.
Which I took from that suit. I looked. I researched this. I couldn't find any reference to it.
I can see where you go through that one, but you look at the construction of the underwear. They appear to be boy short, whereas I see Sue Storm being very much a panty person.
See, I don't see her in any underwear because those costumes are not appropriate. Like, the female characters, the way they're drawn, male characters too, there's no room for underwear in these costumes.
No, but that's the thing. Well, contrary to a lot of other female characters' costumes, she's literally covered head to toe.
Except for that one time where she had the 4-shaped boob cutout, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that one.
It was very short, though, and I'm glad it ended.
That was wonky. She's a mother, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So anyway, Deadpool is listening to a police scanner to find a crime scene because he's going to sleep in it. Because that's where Deadpool sleeps. He finds a murder scene that has been taken care of by the crime scene investigators.
Well, yeah, because no one's going to be there.
Yeah. Preston is very, very upset about this. But Deadpool's like, this is fine for me. So now he's in the crime scene, and Wolverine just randomly sneaks in.
Bub.
Basically confirms that Wade was right. He's being followed. Wolverine has tracked these guys here. He warns Deadpool, and they decide to split up. Wolverine takes the top, Deadpool takes the bottom. Deadpool decides to fill a microwave with a bunch of chemicals and knives.
Yep.
I'm not sure why at the moment, but we'll find out shortly.
Wolverine runs by the gas heater and just, shink.
Turns it on. Yeah.
Turns a little on, cuts a little tube or two.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of guys rappelling down the side of the building. Wolverine cuts the ropes. Deadpool blows up the microwave in a bunch of guys' faces. This wonderful scene of Deadpool standing in the middle of the road, shooting into the sky at a helicopter, basically telling Butler, come and take him.
Right.
Kind of thing. Molan Labe, come and take me. Like... Molan Labe.
No.
When Persia asked Sparta to lay down their arms, and Sparta told him to come and take them, Molan Labe. That's what the phrase comes from.
Deadpool is just Kuman Labre, as you said.
Molan Labe.
Multiple labia.
Multiple labia.
Just shooting at this helicopter in the sky.
Yeah.
And then...
Scene whites out, and we see...
He is now actually been captured, and there's a whole bunch of tubes in his body, and a very large tube around his penis.
Yeah, I don't know why there's a whole bunch of tubes coming out of his wiener.
One knows. But we got part 2 after this.
Yes, jump to part 2.
Deadpool he's carving a nice turkey dinner.
Yeah, this is a weird scene.
Some crash test dummies.
I guess he's having a nightmare? I don't quite know.
Realization of self. Uh-oh. He's not really carving a turkey for loved ones. He has no loved ones.
Yeah, he's just having some horrific nightmares at this point while he's stuck in this tank. Colonel Jong enters the lab, speaking with Butler, accuses him of being distracted by the health of his sister, which we now understand the beloved that this scientist was laying on is his sister, which is now creepier by calling him his beloved. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of uncomfortable. Creepy. But Butler basically says everything's fine. Everything I've done is for you, and the stuff for my sister is entirely ancillary. It's the fringe benefits. I have not missed any of my targets, and Colonel Jong's like, yeah, but you've missed all your deadlines. He's like, it takes time. This is cutting-edge science. Calm down. They're going to go over the quote-unquote other specimens in Camp 23.
Kind of funny, because what's the name of Wolverine's clone?
X-23.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Deadpool all of a sudden wakes up from suspended animation and just starts killing all of the scientists.
Now, really quick,
Yeah, thank you.
What happened?
Yeah, what is
thing
that in his leg?
pops, and he did his insurance policy earlier, look like a tracker, but that's where he put it, right? It's like some sort of thing that pops.
Now, like he says, quote, it's Ant-Man the condom. I don't want to know. I don't get it. Like, what is it?
Him up, like
So,
I just
maybe that tracker had a little bit of adrenaline in it, like
Or something,
little capsule or
yeah.
something. I don't know.
I don't
But,
think it
like,
was a tracker, though. I think it was like
was something else.
super secret Adderall pill.
or something, yeah, because like it swells up, it explodes, like blood and pus goes everywhere.
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
nasty.
He's a giant mass that grows out of his leg and it pops, and then bleh, this nastiness kind of floats into the tank.
Maybe it's kind of like if someone pops your zit while you're sleeping, you wake up.
Yeah, we've all experienced that one. So
100%, Davis.
Whatever.
I mean, that might be the idea, though, is that it swells and bursts, and like the jolt would wake him up or something. All I know is that it wakes him up.
And then he starts ripping out throats.
Yeah, he physically rips out one scientist's throat. He takes one of the tubes in his body and shoves it in another guy's eye.
Fuck.
He throws a scalpel into a guy's back.
It was a pretty gruesome.
It's a very graphic one. Preston confirms that Deadpool has been under an experimental mind-wiping drug, which is why he hasn't been remembering all these harvestings. Deadpool runs into a scientist in the hallway, and he has to quietly get rid of him. So, who wants to talk about this moment?
I'll talk about it.
It's a wonderful moment.
So I learned 3 things today involving this one. One, when using a handgun, I'm assuming some form of 9mm, probably a Glock. You can use a potato, a Coke can, or a human bicep as a type of silencer.
Yeah, Deadpool places the pistol to his arm and shoots through it into the guard's face.
Yep, one and done. Apparently, a very useful silencer.
I would assume only useful if you have a healing factor. So much less, like, if you really need...
It's a great one-off party trick.
Yeah, like Daffy Duck in the Devil costume where he drinks all the nitroglycerin. And he's like, I can only do it once, and he floats to heaven.
Oh, God.
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that without a healing factor or in a dire emergency, but you can use your bicep as a pistol silencer.
Yeah, but that's why I always carry a potato with me.
You carry a potato with you?
Oh, I'm Irish-ish.
Irish silencer.
The potato now, or you ferment it to drink it later?
That's a Family Guy joke, isn't it?
It's Archer.
Archer, that's right.
It's
Archer.
an Archer joke.
I love that.
So as soon as he is done liberating himself from this camp, we see a giant statue of the glorious leader himself. He's in North Korea.
Yeah, nobody says it, but he's in North Korea. It takes a while for them to actually say North
eventually
Korea.
they do make sure you know it's best Korea.
But it's really clear they're in best Korea.
Yep.
That joke's totally not played out yet.
So yeah, Deadpool exits the building, realizes he's in North Korea, and he encounters Butler. Butler shows Deadpool what he's been doing with his organs. I loved the term they used for this. I think it might have been a comic book resource article. I'm not entirely sure where the source was, but they referred to this group as the K-Men for Korea. And basically, Butler has been using Deadpool's DNA to graft certain X genes onto normal humans. So we now have this cancer-skinned X-Men team of North Korean internment camp prisoners.
Right.
We have a Storm, we have a Cyclops, we have a Wolverine, we have a Nightcrawler, we have a Colossus, we have a Banshee, we have a Thunderbird, and we have a Sunfire. Now, I was unfamiliar with Banshee, Thunderbird, and Sunfire. I spent about a half an hour trying to type in their costume into Google, which was very interesting.
Sunfire, already 15 things. Thunderbird, already 15 things.
Just like offensive Native American X-Men, like I was trying, I didn't know how to quite go about it, so I'm just typing in the words I can figure it out, and they're all covered in Deadpool swords, basically, and have these blue and white amalgamations of the standard traditional X-Men costumes that they wear. Butler then reveals to Deadpool he has a child with Carmelita.
What?
And then shoots him in the head.
Yep. Blocking out.
So the next 2 pages are really cool because it's just
scared.
2 completely black pages of just Button's dialogue.
Right. And it's all just, I'm scared. And then it's just her monologuing, being like, Wade, wake up. come on, Wade. Like you come on. You're awake. I can feel our fingers move. Come on, don't be a dude.
Yeah, Deadpool seems kind of broken on this one at the moment. She's alone in Deadpool's head trying to wake him up. She's bouncing from fear to self-reliance to trying to pick up Deadpool, I guess, spiritually, emotionally, and it's not quite working. Deadpool finally opens his eyes and we can see that he's strapped into some restraint contraption in a cave. Hasn't spoken in 3 days. And when he finally speaks to Preston, he says, her name is Eleanor. So Deadpool knows about his child. He says that Carmelita came to him asking for help. Deadpool basically laughs her off.
Shaking him down for child support.
Yeah, but Deadpool's like, it must be a scam. Verbatim, he says the child is too beautiful and doesn't think that he can create anything that looks like that. Which, again, everybody's down on Deadpool. So is Deadpool. Mm-hmm. He's also down on himself because everybody else is.
It's jumping that line between having humility and being self-loathing.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate with how he's dealing with this. And Preston's basically like, no, your mind's getting messed with. You took the drugs and everything. You should be. And he basically shuts her completely down by saying, do you remember seeing your son's face for the first time? Like, Deadpool's just not accepting, no matter what happened in his life, that he would forget his own child. You know, and he's really beating himself up over this. Thankfully, Korean Nightcrawler shows up. Mm-hmm. A man named Kim. Deadpool...
What's his Cayman name?
I don't know what Nightcrawler is in Korean.
No, neither do I, but I'm thinking like we could do something like...
Darkwalker?
Done.
Okay, so Darkwalker shows up.
There we
go. Copyrighted. Anybody else uses that, you got to pay us.
Darkwalker bamfs into the situation.
Yep, it actually says Bamf, so...
Yeah. Well, it's the same power, so it's going to have the same onomatopoeia.
Yeah, so shows up, Deadpool won't speak to him, so Preston kind of takes over. Darkwalker bamfs him out of his restraints, and basically tells him that he is made of pieces of another man with powers and a piece of Deadpool. And he goes, oh, okay, well, that basically explains some things. And he confirms that his family is being held captive, probably in the same location that Deadpool's family is being captive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, being held captive. So, arc moment. Preston asks, how are you trained to use the powers? And he basically, and he's like, what do you mean trained?
And this is going back to, as I said, these flashbacks. Everything is in all white. Every flashback
is brutal.
Everything is in all white, little grayscale there, and they're literally on a firing squad with 3 men that all look like this off-brand Nightcrawler going, all right, 3, 2, 1, fire. Poof. First guy doesn't bamf out the way. He's dead. Second guy, fire. Poof. Guy doesn't bamf out the way. He's dead. As he's trying
to reassure him, be like, just breathe. You can do this. Like, he's trying to talk him through, like, if you just focus, you'll get out of this. The guy's like, I can't. And he just out.
Yeah, they basically learn how to use their powers by being on a firing squad.
It's very North Korean of them.
Which is horrific. And he just happens to be able to bamf out of the way. So after the training scene, we see Deadpool and the Korean Nightcrawler are running to the camp to see their families. And Preston is going to force Deadpool to kind of take the wheels here by running at 2 armed guards. This Deadpool is basically like, look, you're a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, but you're not trained to handle this. And she's like, okay, fine. Well, you're up, stupid. And basically gets him into this giant fight scene with these 2 guards, which he easily handles them and then immediately shuts down afterwards.
Yeah, he's just no jokes, so serious.
Yeah, she makes a quip of like, oh, the day Deadpool finally shut up. And he's like, quick, trying to cheer me up.
Yeah, he is so
he's just so morose.
Yeah.
So despondent. I like
pensive.
That
word. Morose is a good one,
pensive.
Very
like
pensive.
Like a DJ Khaled album cover.
All right, guys, if we keep working, we will reach that perfect SAT score.
Okay, so they decide to explore what's in this weird locked bunker that these 2 guards are guarding, and they find Cap and Wolverine in suspended animation.
What? They ain't gonna be happy.
And it has like Wolverine's hands angled like so the knuckles are towards his face. I noticed that. So it's like if his blades were not just like right into his own face.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of, he won't die because he's Wolverine.
No, but the idea is that it's harder for him to escape.
Exactly. So we jump to part 3, which is a Captain America flashback. Mm-hmm. Davis, you want to talk about the flashback?
Well, it's old school Cap and old school Bucky going to the Western Front in order to save our troops.
Germany, 1943.
Germany,
Well,
1943.
specifically, it's a concentration
Well,
camp,
I guess
right?
I guess it'd be 44 because it's a concentration camp.
Yeah, I was gonna
Maybe
say
45.
it's actually like it's not like the classic like plucky like the Western Front, like America on the move. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, this is horrific. There's a truckload full of bodies.
Yeah, they're cleaning a concentration camp.
It's
and
pretty awful.
As our boys find a truckload of bodies over there in Germany, they think to themselves, well, how can we make use of these good old-fashioned corpses?
for the war effort.
For the war effort.
So what, your troops?
We're going to have lampshades and piano pins tonight, I tell you what.
Oh my god.
Too much? Too much? Okay.
Is that, who was the scientist that would use...
Bastard that
Yeah,
went to Brazil. But so we have going back again, flashback. It is winter, cold. This just kind of just snowy, all white.
in the very white
with this red. Like you have the red of Cap's shield and his boots, and a red Nazi flag, and Bucky in his red leggings for some reason,
And
just popping.
the pink of the corpses, the vulnerability again.
Well,
Just all of this working out as we see Deadpool is like, hey guys, welcome from being in suspended animation.
Well, Epsilon says, this is why we fight. We must never allow this to happen again. That's a very important line, and we're going to come back to it at the end. Mm-hmm. But that's the whole reason of Cap's flashback is his reference to an internment camp, his reference in his mind to this kind of situation he's currently in, which is we can't allow these kind of things to happen, which is exactly what's happening in North Korea right now. Well, in fictional North Korea.
Right.
Deadpool wakes up Cap and Wolverine and basically kind of shows him what's going on. And the Korean Nightcrawler's like, oh, great, your friends are here. And immediately, both of them say, he's not our friend. So, like, Deadpool can't catch a break anywhere in the story.
Not at all. Like, no, it's like, hey, here to help you, buddy. He's not our buddy.
Yeah, can't catch a break
like,
at all.
thanks for breaking us out of the suspended animation. By the way, still not our friend.
Exactly, yeah. So the other K-Men, the Korean X-Men, show up and kind of quickly team up and figure out they have to take this camp very quietly and quickly, because if they don't, it's going to get to the other camp, Camp 23, and their families are going to get killed.
The line, like, he smells like you and Nightcrawler. It's like, aw, apparently they got all Wade's nasty smelliness from his, genetic thing they put into him.
What, have you seen their skin?
It
Just open wounds.
You could totally
Just open wounds.
You could totally throw something through some of these open holes they have in them.
Yeah, Colossus has a lot of holes through him, which is
Yes.
kind of weird. So they have to take this camp quickly. They decide to team up, and a wonderful fight scene immediately ensues. Deadpool gets bamfed into a guard tower, pulls out a pair of brass knuckles. One hand says dead, the other hand says pool, beats that guard down, and then pulls up the guard's rifle. As he's shooting the opposing guard towers, says 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare an actual war.
Because Captain America has already expressed, he's like, we need to be very careful about not starting an open conflict between the U.S. and North Korea.
Right.
Yeah, to which Deadpool's like, I don't care about that.
He says, like, listen, I'm an Avenger. We can't be doing this. But Captain America can do some random thing.
Yeah.
That's right. He does make that
Yeah, he's like,
distinction.
Captain America can't do this, but I can. So, yeah, Deadpool does his little 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare an actual war, and this fight scene ensues. Now, Wolverine tells Korean Colossus to throw Korean Wolverine into a guard tower, which is a traditional X-Men move. Colossus always
Yeah, it's
threw
the,
Wolverine.
fastball, right?
Yeah, it's called fastball. Classic X-Men move, and having never done it before, it fails miserably.
He just
That
launches
misses it
him like-
altogether.
Yeah.
Like, Park will forgive me.
Yeah.
Probably.
Just throws him way past the guard tower. But thankfully, Korean Cyclops can no longer hold his eyes shut and just blast the tower down. We have two guards take a syringe out of their pocket, and basically like, this is going to kill us though, isn't it? What's better? They're going to shoot us anyway because we lost the camp. So they stick these syringes in them and turn into these giant rock monsters and just start
What?
causing problems. Giant rock monsters.
Rock monster!
That's rock lobster.
Lobsters are monsters.
No, they're not. They're giant sea scorpions.
Lobster Johnson. Anyway.
These two rock monsters get lit up by the Korean sunfire, and they respond by grabbing him and throwing him into a barbed wire fence,
Right.
which just shreds him.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah,
Actually.
it's pretty horrific. They grab.
You're like, look at the heroes doing these amazing things,
and then just
shredded.
Throw him into a blender of a barbed wire fence.
I mean, it really does look like he's turned to like pulp. I mean, it's really nasty little. It's a pretty nasty frame.
Very graphic. They're very graphic in this part of the story.
Hashtag no filter on this one.
Not even a little bit. They grab the Korean Thunderbird by the arms and legs and start to pull him apart from the middle, which Cap, Wolverine, and Deadpool step in. Wolverine cuts a hole in the chest of one of them, and Deadpool shoves a grenade in the hole, which blows him to pieces. Now Cap turns to the other rock monster and basically says, "Surrender or I turn you over to them."
He just starts spilling
He
everything.
immediately just gives up everything. He's like, here's where the DNA samples are being held. Here's where the family camp is. Here's everything you need to know. Please don't kill me. So Deadpool breaks into the DNA bunker and doesn't find Butler. Deadpool kind of has this heart-to-heart with Preston at that point, which I think is really interesting. And he basically says, when everyone treats you like you're worthless, you believe it. This kind of thing we've been seeing.
Yeah.
Every character so far that comes in contact with Deadpool treats him as worthless. The only one that thinks he has worth at this point is Butler, and it's just for his healing factor.
Yeah,
Doesn't even think he's worth as a person. He's just worth something as this DNA sample, this harvesting tool.
Right, and even then, like, Preston is the only person that's ever, driving Deadpool to do anything. Not even himself is he trying to do anything. He's just like, yep, nope, just gonna sleep in these murder scenes and, exist.
Yeah. So basically, Butler's kind of loading up his beloved, his sister, whatever, and flies off in a helicopter, which puts to a close part 3. Now we jump into part 4, which opens with a Wolverine flashback.
Again, all white in the background, a little bit of black, a little bit of gray thrown in there, but this very vulnerable pinky flesh with some blood. Again, with the red, blood being with all these flashbacks.
Yeah, I like how when his claws come out, they make sure to dial home the point that every time Wolverine's claws come out, he has to cut his own body. Mm-hmm. Like his holes aren't there. He has to cut through his skin every time he wants his claws out. And it's just this splash of blood on the white snow. Basically him running away from the Weapon X program and his dialogue about fighting to be a man and not a monster. The whole point of the Weapon X program is to dehumanize him far enough to where he's just this mindless killing machine at someone else's disposal.
One thing I was going to mention was that this is a little small distinction because, up here it shows the K-Man Wolverine bone augmentation. It's not metal.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that doesn't even Wolverine point out. He's like, ugh, poor guy. Yeah, he points out, it's like,
they don't have the technology at this program to give him the adamantium skull, this skeleton that Wolverine has. So he still has the bone claws.
Yeah, and I think wasn't Wolverine makes a comment. He's like, "Oh God, I remember that." Like,
that's almost. It's kind of poor guy to just suddenly have bone claws. This Wolverine grew up with that. He learned when he was 13, I think.
Right.
That he has bone claws. This guy's like, I've been normal my entire life. Shit, experiment happened. I got claws now.
Snicked. That's creepy.
That hurts. That's really painful. So now Wolverine's kind of worried. He's like, okay, they have my student's DNA. Because at this time, Wolverine is running his own school. Him and Scott Summers have kind of parted ways after the death of Jean Grey.
Scott got all cray and whatnot.
Yeah. Scott's taken over the X-Men, where Wolverine is running the Jean Grey School for the Gifted, which is the then Xavier School. He takes over Xavier's school, renames it after Jean Grey, and is running this school, trying to be a good person. It's odd. He was always the darker character, and now he is better than, I don't say better, but he is trying to be more noble than Scott Summers.
I think this is where what happened. He got wounded and said that he doesn't get regenerative anymore. I'm guessing there's some incident where he no longer can, like...
Yeah, at one point in the comics...
He clearly can regenerate because his arm looks okay-ish now, or something.
At one point in the comics, he lost his healing factor. I do love that Deadpool puts a little pink Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
Which the artist made a note to continually draw that pink Band-Aid, because you'll see him running into combat with this little pink Band-Aid over a bullet wound.
So he's he's not regenerative, but he's still kind of strong. Is that kind of what it is?
He's
I just want to understand the context.
He's tough as nails. He's always been tough as nails. Right now, he does not.
But if he blew off his arm, the arm's gone.
Yeah. You take a part out of him, he's done.
Okay, so yes, the stakes are a little higher for him now.
It wasn't really about the healing factor for him. He didn't really care too much. He was always throwing himself into danger no matter what.
But I mean, when you lose that ability, you're obviously you have to fight more conservatively. I mean, you can't just...
You'd think, but it doesn't look that way.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Still barreling head first.
He's just gotten better at it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Wolverine does make a point to say he's glad that Cap is leading the program, and Cap's kind of taking the point man. He's trying to make a plan how they're going to get to this Camp 23. And Deadpool's like, well, they want me. Let's give them me. So all of a sudden from Camp 23, it appears they've captured Deadpool. Only they go to pull up his mask, and it's the Korean Cyclops who just blows them all away with his laser vision, which, good tactical move. I mean,
It's solid.
It really worked for them. They seem to fall for it. Plus, it's a good way to get rid of a vast number of the people. Now, I don't know with how dramatic the explosion was. I'm not entirely sure if Korean Cyclops survived, because it doesn't seem like a lot of these
it looks like he
surviving.
didn't. Looks like he didn't really last too long in that, because it's just this giant zark.
Yeah, again, I always love these sound effects and how they draw them.
It's wonderful onomatopoeing.
Yeah, so it blows him away. Deadpool jumps down and immediately kills Colonel Jong. Butler's running away. Chaos ensues. The Korean Wolverine ends up getting shot in the head. Korean Nightcrawler then bamps the shooter into some barbed wire. Like he rematerializes with barbed wire in his organs, which is really horrific, but don't shoot my friend. I mean, I understand entirely.
It's solid.
Yeah, if someone shot Greg, I'd be very upset. I would try to bamf them into some barbed wire. Dude. And if someone shot Davis, I would tell them that's not cool.
I can handle that. But I will say, the K Wolverine, let's just call him Badger. They seem, it's like, can his healing factor do that? It's like, no, his healing factor isn't that good. Also,
the whole point was he got shot in the head. So right. Wolverine's like, well, his brain will regenerate, and the Korean Nightcrawler's like, no, the brain doesn't regenerate for him.
Well, even then, they even said, yeah, but his healing factor pretty much treats every opening in his body as a wound and tries to close it. So his eyes, ears, mouth, nose, everything, he has to constantly cut open because he's dealing with two people that have a human healing factor.
Let's spend a couple minutes talking about your butthole constantly closing itself.
Oh, God.
Imagine how horrific that is.
You'd have to have a corkscrew with you at any given point in time.
Oh, your butthole. Oh, wow. Wow. He's got claws. Oh, that's even... I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, or an ice pick.
Oh, that's a small opening, though.
I wouldn't go with bar tools for any of these things.
No bar tools to reopen your butthole?
Well,
I'd go to a different part of the kitchen, like not the bar.
A different part of the kitchen.
No, you start at the bar, then you get the tool.
Yeah. So yeah, in a very non-comical way, they basically decided Korean Wolverine is like, please just kill me, and Wolverine's like, I'll take care of it. You know, he feels the responsibility being the DNA host that kind of caused this whole problem, and basically quietly snicks a claw through the brain.
We assume.
And it's done. And you just see this very sad panel of no background at all, very silhouetted figures, just Wolverine holding his counterpart of remorse. You know, and very dark moments. There's so many painful moments in this comic of just these poor people that have been taken advantage of, for lack of a better term. They've just been subjected to this horror at this point, and the heroes who are responsible having to take responsibility. You know, Wolverine didn't actively do anything, but he feels responsible because he's been a target his entire life. You know, he's always been a target for other people's misery. And now we see exactly what that can reap. You know, they end up kind of liberating this camp, and everybody starts reuniting with their families. Except not everyone starts reuniting with their families.
Right.
Like Nightcrawler gets to meet his wife, girlfriend, whatever.
We find out his name is Kim.
Counterpart is. But we see Colossus openly weeping because his family's dead.
Right.
And what's kind of horrific here is Deadpool's like, I made a sign from a family. Let's go find him.
Carmelita and what's her name? Sorry, I'm late.
Which I found this moment odd because Deadpool openly references the baby's name earlier.
Right. Like he's like, her name's Eleanor, and it's kind of like, I think that was it, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess it just emphasizes his whole, like, his reality is this weird hodgepodge of memory wiping drugs and voices
and pop culture references.
Yeah.
I think it emphasizes his reality of being the absent father.
Womp womp.
Like it's not a happy explanation, but I really do think it emphasizes that I have not been here for her life. You know, not the right name. I think it is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know. I haven't been a part of this girl's life. But everybody else is kind of like, hey, maybe you should.
And Wolverine's
temper.
Incredibly soft with him.
Yeah,
like
and that's
so compassionate.
That's the.
This is Logan
I
now.
The one thing. It's one of the things I love about the story is it takes the edge off Wolverine. You see that in some of his stories where he becomes very human. And this is one of them where he's like, look, Wade, people don't have their family anymore. I think you're being a little too hopeful here. You should really kind of dial back a little bit. And Deadpool's not getting it and stumbles upon a mass grave with Carmelita's body just kind of sitting in the middle.
These are some sick panels.
And immediately breaks down. Trips into it. He just trips into this pile of human remains, which is absolutely horrific.
Going back to that constant theme of like pinky kind of flesh being a rebirth or something, this is all just dark hued reds.
Yeah, I don't know. I was reading this when it came out. You go from zombie presidents to this.
Right.
And how do you not go, what the fuck is going on?
You don't. Because, Deadpool's dichotomy of a character to begin with. The fact that he is like, oh, haha, he's funny, he's a merc with mouth, he breaks the fourth wall, to, no, this guy has had some really tragic things happen to him over his life.
Trauma. I mean, like, straight up trauma.
Yeah. Most humans don't see things like this and are okay.
And that, and considering his brain is just so fragile.
So fried. So many pieces missing.
Exactly. It's like a jigsaw puzzle at the Y. There's so many pieces missing, it's not even a real puzzle anymore.
How much time did you spend at the Y with your absent parents that didn't love you?
Oh, my parent... Dude, are you kidding me? My parents love the crap out of me. They were always there. Never had to go to the Y.
They're not there now.
Mike, they love you. They love him. They're just disappointed. You're mixing up words.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's fine.
So.
My parents ever listen to this, y'all are going to receive some very strong tweets.
No, we're going to see some very strong handwritten letters from your father.
I was like, do your parents
Your father's not going to tweet at me.
Game?
No, they don't.
Your father's going to handwrite me a letter.
They barely Facebook. He will with the pin that I got him for Christmas as well.
I know. And I'm very, your father sounds like a lovely man.
I was going to say, Michael Durette, you are what we like to call a human fart.
I feel like your father would come with a much better descriptive term. So we jump to part 5, which is Deadpool's flashback. It's him in the Weapon Plus program, and basically he's like, look, I'm done. You cured my cancer, but I'm covered in sores and scars. Like, I'm not dying of cancer anymore, but I am hideous, I'm horrific, I want to die. And basically the entire program's like, yeah, that's not up to you anymore. That's on us. Which is, again, further cementing Deadpool's worthlessness, his hopelessness beneath everybody else. So we jump to the current moment, where Cap decides to go topside and hold off the North Korean army, but also have plausible deniability as to what Deadpool and Wolverine are about to do to Butler, because Butler has sealed himself up in a bunker, and Deadpool and Wolverine are going to figure out a way to get into it.
Rubber baby Butler bunker?
No.
Okay. So Wolverine is just ripping apart his claws, the computer area inside this whole thing. And we find, after them ripping the whole thing, he's going through and destroying everything and laying bombs down to finally blow up this entire complex in figurative North Korea. And Deadpool stumbles upon what kind of looks like a really interesting Cerebro from the X-Men universe of things.
Wolverine's running around trying to figure out how to blow the place up and break in and everything. Deadpool finds, what you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? What's the box that your family uses to talk in your house, Greg?
Intercom,
yeah. Deadpool finds an intercom.
I have one.
the Tilton Hilton had an intercom system.
I understand what you're referencing, but sure.
Anyway.
Intercom system.
So while Wolverine's running around trying to lay the bombs and find a way into the bunker, Deadpool just goes over to the intercom and he's like, hey, Butler, I got a deal for you. Open the door. So the door gets open. And Deadpool walks in and basically sees this panic room. Davis, describe the panic room for us.
It looks like, said Cerebro earlier, but it looks like a hybrid of Cerebro and Magneto's kind of containment unit in X-Men 2, X-Men United. Last room looks like there's a bed in there and various forms of computer panels that just happen to be holographic screens you can look at. Filled with those, and Butler happens to be inside there with his beloved
sister. Just still gross.
Yeah, well, that's Delvey. But then after we see that, it's like, all right, well, dialogue back and forth and say, this is a booby-trapped room.
But Butler starts filling in Deadpool's missing memories and tells Deadpool, look, you were a willing participant of my research at one point. You decided you didn't want to be part of that anymore. And that's when I kidnapped Carmelita and Eleanor as an insurance policy for the future. And basically he's like, look, Wade, this is all your fault. I never would have taken them if you hadn't stopped participating, and they wouldn't be dead now. So this is on you, Chief. Some logic right there. Hey, I wouldn't have had to kidnap your family if you didn't participate in my crazy experiments that are illegal and horrific and unethical.
Well, they're illegal in America. North Korea seems to be just fine with it.
Deadpool makes a declaration to Butler of basically, look, no, finally kind of accepts his worth, which the whole point of this issue, he's been just shit on the entire time. And Deadpool finally accepts his worth. He's like, no, I don't remember everything. But if I stopped helping you make killers, then I must be a good person. It's like, well, it doesn't matter who you talking to. I don't care. I'm behind this bulletproof glass here. And he was actually making a plea to Butler's sister, who he noticed was actually awake in the background, who opens the door, and then Deadpool gets to step in and basically wreck Butler.
Again, all of this happening while Captain America is solo, standing down the entire North Korean army at this point in time.
I really like that point, because the Korean army is just like, they're terrified. They're standing there at like a stalemate. They're like, what do we do?
Like, is the big green guy going to pop out of nowhere?
What about the robot man?
They're like, we should really wait for those tanks to get here.
Like, what about the blonde guy with the hammer? Is he going to pop up out of nowhere?
They're like, yeah, the weak American one's here, but what about all of his friends that terrify us? You know,
America's not weak.
Not because we stand together, Davis.
Yes, just like Hamilton.
Butler's sister's like, hey, I don't even know if I'm his biological sister, which makes things even creepier.
Butler is some level of just completely fucked in the head.
Yeah, like
that's the only way to describe it. He's just fucked in the head.
She's like, look, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of being part of this. Just let me stay behind. And Wade's like, okay, I can get that. I get that. You can stay. Now, Deadpool does take a couple items off the body. He takes a saliva swab.
Swabs the cheeks.
A couple other things to basically allow Preston to open an investigation in S.H.I.E.L.D. afterwards to basically ensure none of his crazy experiments live beyond his existence. Now, Wolverine has set his charges. They blow the place and walk out in cool guys don't look at explosions fashion.
And Deadpool can't stop giving his final words fashion.
Toad running this country that nobody is going to ampersand $% with us anymore.
No one's going to ass with us? That's the only three-letter curse word I know.
There's got to be an exclamation point in there or something.
No, it's
literally just three.
Actually, it's not even ampersand. It's the pound symbol, $% with us.
Hashtag.
I don't complain.
I know for a fact that you were too old.
You know, I firmly believe in the pound sign and not the hashtag.
I was about to say I don't fight about much, but Mike,
you can tweet at us. Pound Jacks of Trades.
Pound a check.
From now on, I will not say hashtag.
All of our hashtags will now be Pound Marvel.
Pound about podcasting?
I wonder how popular hashtag hash browns is. So after the explosion happens, they make a quick quip about North Korea. Again, the fat toad running this country, which again, 2013. So this was right in the beginning of because Kim Jong-il died in 2011. So this is 2 years into the reign of his son and the fat pudgy man that he is.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. So
96 hours later in Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah, all the guys are kind of in street clothes. They're walking the street, and they're having a little bit of a heart-to-heart between the three. Wolverine and Cap are finally seeing Deadpool as their equal. You know, he's no longer this giant joke. He's no longer this weird, comic, goofy mercenary. They're kind of seeing him as an equal. Cap basically, hey, you did great. You know, kind of give him the pep talk, the very fatherly Captain America kind of style that he is.
You're a great soldier.
Whereas Wolverine, not good at emotions, just kind of like, I don't really do this well, so if you ever want to grab a beer, just let me know.
I would like that.
Yeah, but they both kind of finally give him his credence.
But not as Clearwater Revival.
Damn it. The puns have been weak up until this point.
But, yeah, so Deadpool has set his sights. He's like, look, now the focus is getting Preston back into her physical body. It's the only logical course after losing two loved ones. Just jump back into work, you know, and that's all he knows. So that kind of puts a bow on this story, Now, I want to talk about some of the storytelling and the storytelling devices they use. It's the whole reason I brought Greg in on this one. A, I thought it was an accessible story for him to kind of get into, but B, Greg being a filmmaker, I think he has a very interesting perspective that he can kind of bring here. Just the way this story is told is unlike a lot of things that I see in comics. Like, it's told from a different kind of framework. It's very cinematic. It's very theatrical. You know, in kind of its presentation. You have this ridiculous opening that then tanks into this very serious, dark kind of story.
A strong contrast between just this, as we said earlier, we were talking in cinematic terms, the blaxploitation film, the 70s action thing, the kung fu guy, right? It's all this ridiculous stuff, colors and the art style, and then it just serves a massive contrast to like internment camps and like really screwed up experiments and killing women and children, and it's just like they're literally raced against the clock at one point to be like, we have to move quickly because they're going to just start murdering everyone here, so we need to move as quickly as possible so that we lose as few as possible.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, isn't classic 70s racism funny? Oh, it's not so funny when it's nowadays. Like,
right.
Because really, that's what it is. We have two racially charged stories almost. Mm-hmm. The 70s white America dealing with the ethnic population, and then we dive into this very
they keep
modern.
calling him the Westerner. If you notice that, Butler is constantly referred to as like, they're run by this Westerner. And it's like that racial narrative is still
even
woven
the people
throughout
of North Korea don't quite, even not even the people, but even the horrific, military complex of North Korea doesn't even quite accept Butler for what he is. But they just need him.
Like, why is he here?
They do a really good balance of humor and darkness.
Well, it's a very classic thing you see in movies. Like, you'll always have that dark humor, and dark humor is not like haha funny. It just kind of makes you chuckle and it gives you a relief.
Yeah, it's almost one of those, if I don't laugh right now, I'll cry in a couple minutes.
It's why we notice we all harped on that part where he says Carmenella and what's her name.
Yeah, Carmelina, and what's her name?
Carmelina, what's her name? And you're like, we want to find logic in it, but ultimately that whole point was to give us a classic Deadpool moment, to give us a brief reprieve, as well as also to break our hearts. Because you see this moment of Deadpool, and I think about movies like anything made by Lars von Trier, anything made by Aronofsky. They're just such exhausting movies because part of what it is that it's just a spiral, and they don't give you comic relief. They never break from it. It's 2 hours of raw depression. That is those two in a nutshell. And a lot of movies much more depend on like whether it's Will Ferrell or Jack Black, any of these characters, maybe even playing a dramatic role, they're still going to crack a joke in the middle of like a murder scene, like just like someone's getting brutalized and their lives ruined, but like there's kind of this like haha chuckle moment just to give you a breath of air.
Yeah,
and that definitely I felt like that in this.
It's like the Joss Whedon of things, to where if you
definitely
like the first Avengers movie, Iron Man goes into outer space, blows up the nuke, falls to the ground. Everyone's like, is he dead? Flips it up. Hey, you guys want to get shawarma? Like, yeah, we cool.
They almost
shawarma?
Have to dial.
Or like Joss or
on.
The other great example, I know I just keep citing him up. I think about Firefly. He's fighting with Jane. He's like screaming at. They're getting this huge thing about like getting all these people killed. Is that why these people leave your ship? And he's like, "Do you want to run this ship?" And he goes, "Actually, I do." He's like, You can't. It's
very intense moments that are sprinkled with
it's just this amazingly tense moment that's got you roped in, and they kind of break it up.
Well, that's the whole thing.
But it does it very well, though. It doesn't rip you out of the moment.
Yeah, because that's the thing with the story.
That is Deadpool's character.
Is the story is so dark. Like it keeps spiraling downward.
Yeah,
and they just here's a breath of air. And then immediately sucked back down.
Yes,
constantly. You just get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in the story. And
like even the flashbacks, which are a break from the dark narrative, are then their own form of dark things.
Yes. But the cool thing is that
Squad scene just got me, dude. That was brutal. Because at first I didn't understand what was happening at first.
That's really one of the first extremely dark scenes. Is that one that brings us to the pacing of the story. The pacing is extremely engaging.
Yes,
because it sets up a situation, and then the resolution of that situation then ramps up the next one. Like it doesn't actually dial you down; it dials you up further because every moment that's resolved then gets dialed further in.
Well, a lot of
He just keeps
flashbacks are
going
used as
forward.
kind of almost like a quasi-origin story. What I liked about these was, scenes not only added to the story, but it gave me a little context. I'm not sure it was meant for the new reader, but they definitely contributed to my understanding
here's
very
the
quickly.
thing. Here's the thing that I noticed, I took away from it, is if you notice on parts 3, 4, and 5, we have 3 different flashbacks. Cap's flashback, which is part 3, Wolverine's flashback is part 4, Deadpool's flashback is part 5. Part 3 is the good, part 4 is the bad, part 5 is the ugly.
Yeah.
The good is Cap saying, we need to protect this world from evil, which is his flashback to the concentration camp. That's inherent good.
Yeah.
Wolverine's flashback is, I need to protect the world from myself, the evil that I am, which is his bad. Deadpool's flashback is just his self-loathing, his wanting to die during the Weapon X program, which of the moment. Each flashback encapsulates the good, the bad, and the ugly appropriately, which I thought was a great device to tell this story.
Well, it's formative moments for each character.
It really is. It definitely does kind of give you that important backstory of what each character's motivation is. Cap's motivation is holding up the good. Wolverine's motivation is just not letting things get sucked into the bad. And Deadpool's motivation is, well, I'm worthless, so I might as well do the best I can. And it's the good, bad, and the ugly of every, I don't want to say every person, but that's kind of what it is. Like the human animal is you have your inherent good, but you have your bad and you have your ugly. And
or even beyond, I should do the best I can. He's also like, I'm terrible and awful, and I guess I'm just okay with wading in the filth.
Yeah,
right. No pun intended on the wade,
but that's the thing. He's like, this is where I am, so I might as well exist where I am and do what I can where I am. And I thought it was a great way to kind of tell the story is using those 3 characters for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I do like using Deadpool. I think he's the perfect protagonist for this kind of story because he is humorous enough to be this dark, but he's also dark enough to be this funny. It goes back into that humor through darkness through humor. You can't be this dark with a serious character because it gets so dark and you can't get out of that darkness. Yeah. But you also can't
But it's also not a coping mechanism for either, which is weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, his humor never feels like a coping mechanism.
No, it's just who he is. It's just how broken he is almost.
Yeah.
Like that's just what
it's like an extension of it instead.
Is. Now dealing with the art, we talked about this earlier. It goes from this very old school 70s inspired for the flashback issue to the very modern traditional comic styling to the actual story, which is just dark and gritty and angular, and it really highlights the story it's telling. It's not smooth, it's not pretty, it's not very bright and vibrant. It's just, this is kind of the nature we live in. We're going to use the angles, the lines, the colors to really tell this story.
Or the lack of.
Exactly.
Like, there's huge, tons of use of negative space, like the black background with Preston talking, the white space of Wolverine holding K-Man Wolverine. I mean, you just get the use of space, the use of emptiness. You think of it like from a cinematic standpoint again, all those really negative space shots are very wide. And film, you always get your master, which is like just the scene plays out, then you move in for coverage. It's over the shoulder, talk, back and forth. That's a very rote bare minimum needed in film, and then wides are kind of strayed from, and you see it in the comics here too. It's always these like, is their faces, torso up sometimes, and they're talk, but all these dramatic moments, it's tiny person in a huge
and
space.
very pulled out.
Yeah, big and wide, these very nice.
It kind of highlights the emptiness
it really
of
does.
Those moments.
Well, it makes them alone. It isolates them. It's a very isolating moment. The world around them doesn't exist in that moment. It's just him in the white.
It's just him in the white. Man.
I was going to sit there and go, is there a way I can shoehorn the white man back into this?
I mean, it really comes to, well, even then, if you guys want to really drag it back there, all the stuff when he looked at the flashbacks, there's a very white prominence thing, going back to the fact that the white man was the catalyst for this whole thing eventually happening. So with that being said, going with this concept of the I hate to say the purity of white, because we're in the color here, because the white man's a horrible person. Just going back to the purity of this white thing that's like kind of campy, fun, happy adventure that happened back in the 1970s, in which it's, Deadpool hanging out with the with these guys. Oh, it's a good stuff. But having the dichotomy of this pink visceral birth of how this brand new side of Deadpool was birthed from this really kind of jokey event that happened with the white man.
You know what I kept expecting to come back around? In the beginning, he kept hearing people use the word copacetic, and he's like, why do people keep saying that? And, like, he couldn't figure it out.
I remember that.
And I really thought that there was going to be, like, maybe when he was drugged up and plugged into tubes, it was like all a simulation or something. I thought like copacetic was just gonna be this trigger word for him, and I was kind of surprised it didn't.
Copacetic.
Right, I was thinking it was gonna make some relevance later on.
To be fair,
I was curious about that.
I've not read this entire volume, so it might come back around at some point. It might be earlier or later. I'm not sure. It didn't come back in this particular story.
Right, but he goes, "There's that word again, copacetic," and like, what's going on?
Let's talk about some of the other big themes of this. It really addresses the point of self-worth.
Yes.
Like, the whole story is just Deadpool and his lack of self-worth. I don't want to say I want to say worth in general, because nobody really gives him credit. And nobody gives him credence.
Well, not even himself.
But that was his whole point to Butler. Is like, when everybody thinks you're worthless, you start to believe it yourself. Yep. And everybody's really just kind of like, yeah, it's Deadpool. And you almost kind of laugh it off.
He's the Merc with a mouth.
That's what I liked about this story, because he's such a comedic tool in the Marvel Universe that everybody kind of laughs off his more serious qualities. And this story really highlights some of those serious notes that you don't get to see very often from Deadpool. And the fan, even the reader, is just like, oh, Deadpool's funny, haha, which is why a lot of people don't buy his comics right now. Like you do get a lot of purchase, but like traditional comic fans are like, I'm tired of Deadpool. He's just hokey humor,
It's just jokes and violence.
But then occasionally, like recently, he had an issue that just came out. It was issue number 20 of his current run, where he runs into a woman who is going to commit suicide. And he goes on this little one-issue long adventure to kind of prevent her from committing suicide. And he says, look, I am not smart enough to save you, but I'm smart enough to know that somebody else can. And brings her to a hospital to kind of deal with her depression. And there's great moments in the comics in between his goofy adventures where he is a serious, real character. He does have a dark past, just like Wolverine. His past is no prettier than Wolverine's. But we kind of idolize Wolverine for his dark loner qualities. And we kind of brush off Deadpool because he's comedic and fun.
Well, they're both Canadian.
We don't know if Deadpool...
that was just brought into question.
There actually is a reference. There's a reference, because Deadpool's like, why do I remember Ohio? And
God, I thought I was from Ohio.
And Butler's like, well, I'm from Ohio. And he goes, oh, thank God, I thought I was from Ohio. Like, he's so much happier to be Canadian than me. But we don't know. We don't know Wolverine's origin. We don't know Deadpool's origin. We know a little bit. We think we do, but we're not quite sure.
They did release the definitive Wolverine origin a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but that could be rewritten at any moment.
At con.
Yeah.
Welcome to comics.
We also deal with this idea of being victimized. It starts with the white man who's victimizing the minorities. It goes into the internment camp in North Korea that's victimizing these people, and the K-men and everything. Everybody kind of has a certain degree of victimization to them. Everybody is a tool to somebody else in this story, which is kind of take a closer look at it.
And one thing I found really interesting is actually kind of just clicking for me. Freeze and his wife makes him a sympathetic character, right? Any of these stories where people are doing these desperate, awful things to save someone it's obviously built to make them sympathetic, but there is nothing sympathetic about this guy, about Butler, because he's like, oh, my beloved, but they immediately strip that away by making it creepy. But it's kind of like, it's his sister, where you're like, well, maybe he really likes his sister, but he is really using weird language. Then at the end, not just that she was like, I just want to die, but beyond that, it was like,
didn't even know this guy.
Yeah. She's like, I'm not even sure he's my brother. Like, you're like, hold up. This guy is like a really strange fixation with a woman who might not even know who the hell he is.
His butts.
Like, it's a very strange thing. So he has nothing sympathetic. So it's not even like he's doing the right thing with the wrong methods, right? It's like
he's doing everything he's doing is wrong methods. Everything is wrong.
He's clearly unstable. Like, something is very wrong with him.
Mm-hmm. But he is allowed to...
And he makes himself a victim. He's like, I'm doing this for the better. Like, he tries to give the whole... He gives the classic evil man speech, like, join me and we can change the world together. And you don't believe a word of it.
No.
Not because he's evil. You're just like, I just don't... You're crazy. Like, you're not even trying to do the right thing. You're just out of your mind.
Much the, you and me, we aren't quite that different.
Yes. And it's not even remotely relevant or relatable. In any other story, it would sell. But I was sitting there like, just how strikingly evil this guy was with so little time.
Well, he's just page. He's selfish. That's the one thing. He's just the most
and dresses it up as something. Like, he's
right.
convinced himself he's doing it for the right reasons too. I don't know. It's such a crazy villain.
There are plenty of worse villains, I guess.
Who are just
deed-wise.
evil. I want to destroy everything.
Yeah. There's
burn
worse villains.
everything
There's worse villains deed-wise that you'd say you are objectively worse than Butler because you've done X number of things. But he's so much more hateable than a lot of these famous villains. Just because every attempt to humanize him further alienates him. Almost. It just further, like, ew.
Any plea to make him relatable usually backfires. That's basically the way to look at it.
Nothing that was
works.
absolutely intentional. There's no way that wasn't intentional.
Absolutely. And it was he was so unsettling. He was so creepy. There's
disgusting.
like the sympathetic creepy where there's like, you just don't have social mores. Like, you don't understand how to interact with people. You're just an awkward person.
Yeah.
And then there's like, there is something deeply flawed with you.
Yeah,
like
you're
beyond
not wired
sociopathic.
Properly.
Yeah,
you're just
there's
not
something,
wired properly.
He was a very unsettling person. I'd never seen him before. I was like, dude, I do not like you.
Immediately, you're like, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
Another point, it really highlights the political climate at the time.
Yeah.
Which was the turmoil of North Korea's power exchange from Kim Jong-il, who was a lunatic, but he was a lunatic to his own people. And then we get his son, Kim Jong-un, into power. And at the time, we were genuinely concerned.
Tons of headlines
of just like, what is he going to do? Because he is not experienced as a leader. Uncle, because he did something
right, or something
that was saber rattling going on for more aid he was doing.
And for a while there, we were genuinely concerned that he was just going to start a world war because he could. He had the power to. Not that Kim Jong-un is creating Cayman, but given the power at the time, okay, fine. If you had the ability to. He was almost willing to do anything.
Yeah, if you offered him any sort of tool, he'll probably take.
Yeah, which is really cool because we always talk about
accurate or not. That's kind of the sensation.
But that's the whole point. Is comics are a window into the time they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Just like the opening issue, the exploitation issue was a commentary on that time in comics. This is a commentary on that time in the political sphere,
right?
Which was this near helpless feeling that we had as a world against this small superpower. In the Stone Age, which is highlighted because everybody's immediately upset there in North Korea, but they have the power to cause all kinds of mayhem and damage. They have nothing to lose, almost, which makes them more terrifying.
Doesn't even Wolverine, when he wakes up, he's like, are you kidding me? Are we in North Korea? He's like, what?
Yeah, everybody's so upset there in North Korea.
Like, what? Are you joking?
Because North Korea is, I don't want to make this too on the nose, but North Korea is kind of Deadpool-ish. Just this giant joke that has the power to cause all kinds of mayhem.
That's actually a really good comparison.
And I
You're the Deadpool of countries.
I don't think that was very... which means everybody's going to buy their sequel. Like, I don't... Move on to the rating segment of this one. I'm going to start this time. I'm going to say this one's a buy. I really enjoyed this. It's my personal favorite kind of story. I love this gritty, witty kind of story. Like, it's got its darkness, but it's got its humor. It addresses the kind of more serious issues, which I think is very important in a medium like this, but it also dresses them down with the humor, so it's not just so heavy and weighs so hard on you that you kind of don't want to continue reading it. It brings a certain depth to Deadpool that you don't usually see on him, which I do really enjoy, and it's engaging from start to finish. At the very least, it's a must-read, in my opinion, if you are or aren't a Deadpool fan. If you are very against Deadpool, he's just so overused in comics and movies at this point, this is a great story to read about him because it's not the traditional, ha-ha, goofy, let me shoot a bunch of stuff. It's a real, deep, dark story that humanizes Deadpool in a way that doesn't normally happen, and I think it's definitely worth picking up, and if you're the kind of person that likes to put these kind of stories in your library, this is a good one for reread. So I'm definitely giving it a buy on this one. Davis?
Me personally, with this one, I'm going to give this one a just borrow I can give it before pass. Personally.
Really?
Yes. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed that, but it's the exact opposite. When I was looking at this Deadpool thing, I was like, all right, cool, man. Fun, campy Deadpool. Let's have some fun with this. Let's see. And then it got very serious, which, don't get me wrong, I appreciated the story. I loved what it did to evolve the character. But whenever I'm going to read and have these things, I kind of want to have like a fun, campy Deadpool where shenanigans are happening. And Duckpool shows up for some reason. Or his head from the zombie universe shows up for some reason. And wises get cracked and everything.
This is not the story that you want out of Deadpool.
No, not at all.
Saying.
Not at all. This is not the story that I wanted out of Deadpool, but it's still a good story. So that's why I'm giving this one a borrow, because it's a story. It is worth reading. You little of Deadpool canon that I know. I'm not saying this is the definitive Deadpool serious story you need to read, but it's a really good story.
Fair.
Yeah, so again, come from the outsider perspective, I have no context for these characters, but from the movies I've seen and from the little research I've done and just being a guy, you get some indirect access to just comic material in general. Really do enjoy comics, and I would probably say a buy. Just it's one of those ones where, especially like TV shows and movies, or TV shows and any sort of serialized content, there tends to be like, we're going through these adventures, we're having all these things, but there's always the stories that stand out. These moments of character growth. We were mentioning Firefly earlier in the episode where Jane finds a small town that worshipped him as a folk hero. We suddenly had this dumb mercenary character. It's not even that he's all of a sudden has some dark past that you learn all about. It's that you see this character developed in watching him deal with emotions he doesn't like and trying to understand like cultural relevance. Like that's a very high concept for him. And that episode stood out a lot for me. And I think a lot of that here where Deadpool, who I have all these preconceived notions about him and what his character is. And this isn't the only time he gets dark from what I can tell, but I kind of like the direction they went with it. It was fun seeing Wolverine and him both kind of lay some demons out. But I will say Captain America was very underutilized. His character has very few words. He seems like he's in there he emphasizes the good narrative, but I just like really the only major moment he had was you get in SS camps, the
flashback.
Which he was totally not needed for, and or it was so on the nose. So I just was kind of like, I was disappointed in how they used Captain America. I wanted to see more insight on him. Nevertheless, the art style was fantastic. It was a really cool comic. As someone who knew nothing, I was still on the second reading. It made a lot of sense. And God damn, those first two issues with the white man were so funny. I was laughing literally out loud. I was lolling. I was in tears. Those scenes were so funny. Oh my God. I can't say bye. Just a few minor complaints, but overall it was very powerful. And the Cayman stuff and seeing mashed to a pulp on the barbed wire and seeing like real visceral moments that when you think comic books you tend to think kids and humor and young things, but I don't know, that was it was good. It had some really powerful moments, and as someone who's always been skeptical of his interest in comics, I got some strong reactions out of it. So
okay, so we have 2 buys and a very weak borrow. So if you are closer to Davis and you look to your comics for fun light moments, which seems like Davis's more style, this is not the story for you.
Read the first 2 issues of it.
Yeah, but if you like the darker adventures, this is definitely a tale that you should check out, in my opinion. So, guys, anything else you want to add to wrap it up?
No, I got nothing. Like what I said, it was an enjoyable read, but not my cup of tea.
Okay.
Fun to be a part of it this time. Thanks for letting me have a microphone.
Yep. After this, you can just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, won't happen again for a long time. So thanks, guys, for listening. You can check us out at jacksoftradespodcast.com. You can email us at jacksoftradespodcast@gmail.com. We are at facebook.com/jackstradespod. And we are on Instagram and Twitter at jackstradespod. So if there's nothing else for you guys, I'm Mike.
I'm Davis.
I'm Greg.
Have a good one.
Adios, y'all.
This episode, Jacks of Trade, was hosted by Mike Durette and Davis A. Callais. Mixing and recording was done by Daniel Desimone, as well as the editing, and it was recorded at the In-Depth Media offices in New Orleans, Louisiana.
When I was a child, I was hanging with a friend of mine, Jake, and we were like, let's play pro wrestling. I'll be Jake the Snake. I'll be Mike the... I don't want to play pro wrestling anymore. That's exactly how that moment went.